coming in at 307, almost 308. This is a decline from last year's median home value, a decrease of 7.15%.
How much is that a loss to the budget? Do you know that number?
Well, within the property tax, we did get new construction added to the tax roll that we didn't have, so the taxable roll itself increased only from 4.8 to 5 billion, so not a much of an increase because of new construction, but the average median home value, we're seeing this very stagnant. Either it's just staying the same or lower in other communities as well. Everybody's been talking about this in my finance circle. So let's talk about that sales tax and the power of a penny. If we were just to look at 1 penny, what could that raise? So again, I mentioned 5 billion projected property roll. That would give us another little over $500,000 that we could use within the general fund and or the debt service. But what that 1 penny could do would pay for two fully equipped police officers, including one vehicle. Or, of course, any priorities that council sets forth, such as infrastructure, parks, roads, or city services. Now let's look at that quarter. Like you saw, we have reduced over the last 10 years down to a quarter. What would that generate on our property tax roll? We're looking at 12.5 million more revenue. What I consider revenue loss is what has happened here in Princeton. So 12.5 million more annual revenue. So if you break that down to the M&O, which is going to be, again, the general fund services, funding all of those services, that adds 7.4 million to support core city services. And then 5.11 million to the debt service fund for debt obligations. This could open up the opportunity to issue new debt for future infrastructure, roads, projects, library, whatever the council is seeing with the needs of the community. So looking at the distribution of $1 among those city services, how is that paying that $1? Right now, 17.8 cents goes to the debt service rate. This is my projection based on July 13th. So these numbers could change once I get certified. Just to let you know, that debt service rate could change a little bit. But when you look at our administrative services, as well as public safety and parks, public works and development, obviously public safety is almost going to make 14 cents on the dollar. Admin, 5.2 cents for those services. Parks and Rec at 3, Public Works at 1.4, and then development services at 2.4 cents. So again, property tax, as Carolyn had mentioned, what's going on at the state legislation, there's so many things that could possibly impact our property tax. Obviously, certified values. We did see a little bit of bump, but not a lot, so that's why we're seeing our budget very flat this year. New construction, we did get $500,000 in new construction values. That's values, that's not dollars. That's just the value added to the tax roll. New state legislation, don't know right now what's going on, but that's another area to always keep our eye on and listen what's going on at the legislation. Homestead exemptions is another one. Just the tax rate philosophy in general. Do we want to keep it the same? Do we want to look at talking to the residents about increasing, or lowering would be very difficult to handle right now. And then resident affordability. Then we also have the TERS that I broke down for you. And then another thing you have to think about is, as we build a brand new home, the home might be built after January. We don't see that on the tax roll until the following year, but yet we're providing them services as soon as that resident moves in, say May. As fast as they get those homes up and you get a resident in there, it's usually a 4 to 6 month construction lead time, probably 4 months maybe nowadays. And you get them in, we're providing services before we're seeing the property taxes rolling in on that property. So there is a delay in the revenue for that. So sales tax. This is the other revenue stream that communities can rely on for services. So you'll see our actual was a little over 9 million. Our amended budget was 9.1 million. And we are really trending very well right now. I believe you see my monthly updates on what we're trending in our increases overall. I believe is a little over 7% over our proposed budget. So we're estimating at 9.4 million by the end of this year. Therefore, I did increase for next year of 9.6. All the things that are coming online with all of the big boxes and other commercial entities coming in. So this is a 6% increase from the 2026 budget. But I did only increase it just under 2% from where I project to be at the end of this year. So again, I'm very conservative with revenue because I don't want to have to keep coming back and saying there's another revenue shortfall. So I'm very conservative, but I feel very confident in these numbers. And here's a trend too I always check just to see if we're tracking of how we've performed in the past. It's kind of interesting how the pattern, you just follow that pattern consistently, but obviously the top bar is where we are right now on those peaks in those months. And those peaks are usually those entities that pay quarterly. That's why you see a peak in December and in March. And we are 2 months in arrear. So we've received the July sales tax, but that's actually for May sales. That's why this is only showing you through May. So some financial sustainability that we need to be thinking about for the future is our reserves. I had mentioned that earlier. Best practice is 25% unless council directs me another direction on that, but I'm always kind of towing the line at 25% within the general fund. There's also within the utility fund, there's 120 working day capital reserve. So those are always the things to be looking at because those are best practice. Emergency response, infrastructure needs that we need to make sure that we're maintaining. Bond ratings is another one that has got to be very critical right now. If we were to issue bonds, they will be looking at our revenue being flat. Our revenue may be a shortfall if that was to happen. That's why we always say we've got these policies and these check marks that we make sure that we keep our reserves where we are. We've got a policy written around this. We've seen the trend. They know what's coming into the community. So these are some things we have to make sure that we're towing the line for bond ratings as we look to the future in issuing any future debt issuances. And then economic uncertainty and our future flexibility. We need to be flexible when we're looking at our services, such as what I appreciate all these departments of me having to say, guys, we got to kind of stop and look at what is essential services that as we spend, and I appreciate you all. I know you probably have just loved me lately, but just making sure that we're doing the best we can with the financial resources, but still providing the services that the residents expect today. So some revenue enhancements. Here's some other opportunities that staff has looked at as well, and that is our fees for cost recovery, which will be presented. It's also a lot of material in that book that breaks down some of the fees that we're proposing for the next year. Commercial recruitment, and then the economic development that we have going on. Technology, any way that we can use technology to improve the process and our fee collection. I know the chief mentioned about how Shai has really revamped and gone through her development services, and we're going to be seeing a big turnaround, so I appreciate all of that and technology needs and looking at that. I also appreciate Chase looking at some park stuff that he'll talk about later, so I don't want to steal your thunder, but there's some things that we've been thinking about, and everybody's been putting their heads together. What can we do to sustain the services the residents want for today? We're going to be looking at partnerships and sponsorships. I know Aaron and Chase will be talking about that as well for the special events, as well as process improvements. So again, fee review, some reasons of why that our fees are no longer reflect our service cost. Again, that goes back to that cost recovery. Growth has increased and our review and our inspection demands. I believe the fire marshal mentioned at the dais that if she was looking at 100 sprinklers or one sprinkler, it's the same fee. But it takes a lot more time. So those are the things that we're looking at with our fees. Cost recovery to help reduce the tax burden for our taxpayers. Fees that remain competitive with our neighboring cities is something we look at. And making sure that the updates support the quality of service, but also making sure that we're promoting that fairness, transparency, and our fiscal responsibility. Grants, partnerships, and sponsors. Again, we're looking at any additional funding that we can have with our partnerships with the EDC and CDC, as well as community partnerships. Regional collaborations have been looked at as well, and grants. We already talked about the grants a lot, as well as volunteer engagement. I think that's another area we need to really try to have is more volunteers to help us with these special events is something we're looking into. Is that correct, Fallon? So just areas that we can find some sort of partnership and getting more residents engaged in Princeton. So our economic development, the goal, of course, is to build this business retention, provide that sales tax diversification, also employment, bringing more employment here into Princeton versus everybody leaving Princeton to work. Keep them here, spend the dollars here in Princeton, and the development pipeline. So the current status, town center, got that coming online, and the medical office buildings. So some good things. Oh, guess what? Is this a good time for a break? Thank you, Mayor.
Hey, Kelly, I just wanted to say something about the presentation there. And I do appreciate the authentic approach you took in how you presented this to us in the public. Even as polished and professional as you are, it was very clear about what we needed and the direction we're going as a city, and that is greatly appreciated. And I do always want to make sure that you know that the way that me personally, the way that I vote on the budgets is not a reflection of what I think about the great job. You're doing a great job, and it's not a reflection of you as a person. It's more so, you know, what I agree with on the line items and all that. But that breakdown was phenomenal, and it also basically just emphasizes that we as council, we're going to need the help of the residents to kind of bail us out of these positions. And I just want staff to know, as far as leadership, is that that's one of the primary things when I speak to about my opinion about how, you know, we're getting the public safety building, we got the Parks and Recs building, this wonderful building we have here. And the break in communication between the public is that, you know, all these things are offered to the city, but the public kind of feels left out of all of the thought process. And now we're in a position to where we're going to have to go back to them and ask them for their help. So I just want to make sure we kind of keep that in mind moving forward, is that it should be more of a compromise from the things that we're doing for the staff in the city, and that it should feel like it's a partnership with the public as well. But other than that, great job, Kelly. I do appreciate the authenticity of your presentation.
Before you walk off, Kelly, I just wanted to also kind of comment on some of the information I saw here, which I think we've all kind of felt, and I can kind of echo what Councilman Johnson just mentioned, that this gave us, you know, quantitative, you know, visibility to some of the things that we probably all kind of could tell, right? And it seems like we've kind of dug ourselves into a tight spot, and there's going to be some work to get us out of that. I'm particularly interested in seeing, you know, what that one penny looks like, what that breakdown may be, and, you know, if we were to make that adjustment at the 3.5%, you know, what that looks like in comparison to our taxable value, our city's tax value, you know, proposed future state, and, you know, what your recommendation would be, you know, from a tax, because what I took away from that is that we're probably going to need to look at what our taxes are. And I know that's unpopular from like someone new in a council position, so I might be committing political suicide, But, it's just, unfortunately, it is what it is. And then the other aspect of it would be, glad to see Jim's back, but economic growth has to happen. And I know we're seeing some things that are finally coming to fruition, but we have to be hungry and we have to be aggressive about it and making sure that we're getting the right things in and getting them in as soon as we can. So I'd like to kind of see what those numbers look like from the tax aspect of it. So, but I echo what Councilman Johnson said. Great job. Thank you for putting that together.
And Kelly, even more important is that this is a practical approach. It's not a political speech. It's saying where we are exactly, and as council members, not only are we interested in this for the city's welfare, but we also are residents here as well. So this affects us personally, and the transparency, the level of integrity that you bring, and the way that you explain, so hopefully residents can understand, and the openness that you have with this. All of those things are really very much appreciated to help us make the decision that would be in the best interest of the city, but also take into consideration the impact on residents, including ourselves. Because as council members, we do not get a break on anything. We pay late fees if we are late with our payments due.
Thank you for your feedback. It was very helpful.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll take a break. How long you want to take a break for? 10, 15? 15-minute break. All right, we're gonna get started. Chief, I'm not sure who's going up next, but we can get started.
Amber, I believe you're next. Is everybody ready to go? You guys
Yep.
squared away? All right.
Okay, with the city secretary's office, I'm going to touch on just the accomplishments and the challenges. I believe that's what we are going over. So we added a deputy city secretary and a records management clerk to our departments. We also enhanced agenda management, records retention, and public access while maintaining compliance. We have successfully managed the May 2026 special and runoff elections in compliance with the state law. As far as the challenges, increased meetings with different boards, development, legislative responsibilities, continue to expand the workload. Adapting to changing state laws requires ongoing training and process updates, and balancing statutory responsibilities with available staffing and budget. Basically, we are going to continue with our new staff, we're going to focus on strengthening our department by ensuring our team members receive the training and resources that they need to be successful. As far as networking with other municipal clerks, city secretaries, and identifying best practices that can enhance the services we will provide to the organization and to the public.